Over the past few years, everything has changed. Where and how we work and live, the way we collaborate and measure success, and the emerging technologies we use to get it all done. Welcome to The Bridge. Join our host, Scott Kinka, in a series of discussions with top leaders in technology and learn about how they bridge their lives and their businesses into our new hybrid work and AI-driven reality. Our hope is that the insights and experiences will help you on your journey in business and in life from who we were to who we are today. And maybe it'll help you get better prepared for whatever comes next. The Bridge is a service of Bridgepoint Technologies, the nation's leading IT advisory firm. Bridgepoint helps business leaders evaluate, procure, implement, and manage technology and customer experience solutions with a focus on realizing sustainable results for your business growth. And now, here's your host, Scott Kinka.
Watch out! The robots are coming! Or at least the last 50 years of movies and the current media environment would tell you that. And yes, there's plenty to debate about the responsible use of AI technology. But there are solutions that are making real-world change right now, and they're not getting enough press. My guest on The Bridge this week is Swapnil Jain, founder and CEO of Observe.AI, and one of the earlier pioneers in this space. He's a former engineer at Twitter. Swapnil started looking for his next new project back in 2015 and decided that contact centers were intrinsically broken. In his mind, they required disruption. So he built a conversation intelligence platform to improve productivity 10x in his mind by leveraging AI. An AI platform that he believes demonstrates the best of AI and humans working together to improve customer outcomes. Machines provide intelligence, humans provide empathy. Yes, there's a real discussion to be had about the dangers of AI. But does that mean we should put the genie back in the bottle? Can we put the genie back in the bottle? Where would we be if we simply banned the internet to keep the libraries open? Here's my conversation with AI entrepreneur and CEO of Observe.AI, Swapnil Jain. All right. Hi, and welcome to The Bridge. My guest on this episode is Swapnil Jain. He's the CEO of Observe.AI. Swapnil, how are you today?
I'm very good, Scott. Thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate the opportunity to speak with you and the listeners today.
Fantastic. Looking forward to it. We're going to give, certainly in a couple of minutes, an opportunity for you to tell everybody what Observe.AI does. But, these are kind of, in a lot of ways, informal conversations between, tech people, right? At the end of the day, executives. Yep. So I like to personalize at the beginning. So let's just give us your story. Tell us a little bit about you first.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I'm Swapnil. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Observe.AI. Started this company about 5 years ago. My personal background is born and raised in India to a middle-class family. Did my education there, did my college there, and then from there moved to US in 2012. So came here to work at Twitter, right? And the Twitter I'm talking about is not the Twitter that we know of these days. Right? It was a different time. We had Dick Costlow as a CEO, great time. The company was doing fabulously well. It was one of the best tech companies out there in terms of Facebook, Google, Twitter, right? So amazing run there for about 3 years, and then 2015 I had a lot of FOMO. Right? You would laugh at this, but a big part of how Observe started was through FOMO. So a lot of my friends were starting companies, raising a lot of money. I was sitting in San Francisco reading about that. And that was the trigger for me that, hey, I got to do something of my own as well. So I jumped the ship, did 2 years of research, trying to find an idea. Through a lot of hard work in contact centers, came up with the idea to start Observe.AI.
That's an amazing story. So you're still in the Bay Area?
I am. So I live in San Francisco, Bay Area, got married about 18 months ago. So my wife and I, we live here in San Francisco in a beautiful downtown. So that's where we are.
Fantastic. Did you do the get married in the US and then go back and get married in India and do the whole week-long thing?
I actually did. So my entire, if I look at the process, right?
Yeah.
Had like multiple events. Two of them here in the Bay Area, then about four of them back in India. So it was a pretty long process, and by the end of it, we were really, really tired. But yeah, you
I
got
can
that. It was a
imagine.
pretty long, yeah. And
That's incredible.
every sort of celebration involved a different dress, right? So you
Yeah.
can imagine like they have to buy like so many dresses. It's a lot of work, but it was fun.
I asked that only. I have a friend, a very close friend, whose son, was, and he's, they're Native Americans, Americans, I should say, from here, and he married an Indian girl, and they went back and did the whole scene, right? So he's sharing the whole thing with me, and
Yeah,
he is as he is as apple pie American as you can possibly imagine, and he is sending me photos of him sequined head to toe,
yeah.
throughout the entire process. So, and I was sharing those pictures with my wife, and she's like, "This feels like it must be the most amazing wedding experience from a parental perspective, right?" But I can
Have
imagine that
you?
the bride and groom are very tired at the end of it, right?
They are. Have you been to an Indian wedding, Scott?
I haven't, only
Oh,
vicariously through my friends' pictures, right? That's it.
I would strongly recommend one. Right, the food, the dancing, obviously the music, everything is phenomenal. You have a lot of fun, and of course the clothes.
I think I would be afraid to dance at an Indian wedding because everything looks like a Bollywood video. Everybody's so well coordinated. Is that just in the movies, or is that what the wedding actually looks like?
No, that's no. I think that's a very. It's a wrong perception of what it looks
Okay.
like. In fact, the Indian wedding dance is the most loose form of dance, where you basically move and you're fine. You know how we go in clubs, right? You're just standing and
Yeah.
you're like, that's it.
Yeah.
So you do
Okay.
whatever no one cares dance. So it's actually very fun.
Well, if there's anyone out there in our listener base who is planning a wedding in India and they're just looking for a rando guest, my wife and I are happy to be invited, and we will certainly join you there. Well, that's a great story. So you did 2 years of research.
Yeah.
And I think that's an interesting stepping off point before we get to the kind of the Observe AI pitch. So let's just talk about the 2 years of research. I mean, you saw a need. You came from Twitter. Geez, that could be a whole episode in and of itself, and maybe we'll revisit that in the future. But let's focus on Observe for the moment. What was the need you saw? I mean, and why? Why did you end up focusing where you focused?
Yeah, so as part of my research, I spent 2 years, and a big part of that, which was towards the end for about 6 months, I spent a lot of time in call centers actually. So I was in
Okay.
Philippines, Manila, where I would go on these contact center floors, right? And the reason these are called floors, anyone who's worked in contact center would know, these are like giant ass floors. You have like hundreds of people sitting in, taking calls, writing emails, writing chat, right? It's a busy floor, right? So I would go on these floors and just sit there and watch people, right? I would sit and look at an agent, see what the agent is doing, try to look at their workflows, try to look at their systems, try to do how they're taking calls, try to look at how they're being compliant, try to look at like how they are doing after call work. I would look at everything. Then I would look at a QA person and see what they are doing, right? How they're evaluating calls, reviewing calls. Look at a supervisors, look at an operations person, right? So I spent 6 months doing that, right? And the interesting part about that journey was all these call centers in Philippines and India were actually working PST and EST hours. So this was all be at night, right? So the actual work would start, at Philippines, let's say 9 p.m. and then finish at 5 a.m. Right? So just the opposite. So my entire night was just looking at these people. And what I realized there, Scott, was so my background is software engineer. I'm a computer science engineer. I was at Twitter as a software engineer. So I'm a builder, right? And I've lived in the Bay Area before I did that research. And in Bay Area, we all talk about AI and technology and SpaceX and Teslas and iPhones and
Yeah.
amazing things, right? But when you go and look at these people on the floors, you would realize how manual and legacy everything is for those people, right?
Hmm.
Their workflows are archaic, right? They're still using pen and paper. They're still listening to calls manually. They're still doing coaching, once a month on one or two calls. Everything felt like it needed to be disrupted and changed for the
Yeah.
right reason, right? So that's how it started. That there's a massive opportunity to really come in and use the latest and greatest of technology, especially artificial intelligence, to build a new class of software for contact centers so that they can do their job 10 times better and faster, right? So for agents, managers, supervisors, everyone can be 10x productive. So that's how Observe started.
Did the pandemic and hybrid work model change the need in any way for you? I mean, you talked about these big monolithic floors. I'm familiar, as you're aware, right? We work together on big contact center deals. We also managed BPO outsourcing to the Philippines and and other offshore destinations. We're super familiar. But tell us, how did that change a lot? Did the need change, I guess, during the pandemic, and then has it settled back to normal, or is there a new normal even in contact centers?
Yeah, no, I think it actually, I would say it escalated during pandemic,
Okay.
right? Because our key offerings were how AI can help humans do their job better, right?
Yeah.
So now in a remote world where a supervisor is remote, where a manager is remote, where a QA person is remote, an agent is remote, right? So they're all over the world, right? Not even all over the country, right? The agents are in India or in Philippines or Southeast or wherever they could be, right? The manager could be here in US or South America, right? So what that meant was there's a much higher need for software, because imagine, right? Previously, what would happen is, if you're in a contact center, a QA would just walk the floor, a supervisor would just walk the floor, right? And then kind of get a sentiment of which call is going bad, which call is going well, which agent needs help, where do they need to jump in, right? But now imagine you're a large contact center with 10,000 agents. Your QA is sitting in one place of the world, has no idea how their agents are doing, and they can't even understand their world, right? So that's where we saw a higher need for AI tools for these people to do their job better and faster, right? So more intelligence, more understanding of conversations, better understanding of what's happening on these conversations. It kind of became a much higher need in the pandemic world.
That makes sense. So that's probably a good stepping off point then. So for those of our listeners who are not familiar with Observe AI, and I always find it interesting to compare these conversations with executives to what we've heard from the salespeople in the field, right? Or what's on the website.
Yeah.
Give us the elevator pitch from your desk as the founder. Tell us, who is Observe AI and what is it that you do?
Yep, absolutely. And I think it's kind of interesting how you put, a pitch of a sales rep is different than pitch on the website, because whenever I pitch, people say like, "Hey, I've not heard that pitch. Why is that different than what I've been pitching?" I'm like, because in my head, the pitch I'm telling you is the one that's 1 year ahead of where the website and sales team is. I
Sure.
have that pitch in my head, and the team will follow through. But yeah, of course. So, Observe is a conversation intelligence platform, right? We help businesses and contact centers improve outcomes from the contact center. So if you're a sales contact center, we help you improve revenue. We help you improve conversion rate. If you are a service call center, we help you improve your cost by reducing your QA cost, by reducing your AHT, by improving your CSAT, by improving your after call work. And if you're a collections contact center or a revenue cycle management contact center, of course, we help you with more compliance and with more revenue. And the way we do that is by analyzing every single interaction that you're doing. It could be chat, it could be voice, it could be email, in real time, and analyzing that using speech and natural language, and providing the right insights and next best action to every single persona in the contact center, right? So this means that at the core, there's an AI platform. And then on top of that, we have a bunch of applications, right? So starting with agent, we have an agent assist application which listens to the call in real time and then guides the agent on what to say, what not to say, based on what we have learned from your knowledge bases, what we have learned from your previous conversations, what we have learned from your top agents. So imagine this is like an AI and a human doing the call together, right? So the latest word for that is a co-pilot, right? It's a co-pilot to an agent where the agent and AI are flying the plane together. Agent is leading and the AI is the co-pilot, right? It would take all the notes from the call, so it would summarize the entire interaction. It would automate the after call work, so the agent doesn't need to do after call work, right? It's kind of an assistant to the agent, right? It's guiding how to handle an objection, how to handle a negotiation conversation, how to best pitch the product. Then we have a supervisor application where in real time supervisors getting a view of what's happening with every single interaction in their floors. They can see all the interactions, they can listen, they can barge in, they can chat with the agent, and more importantly, they can set up the right alerts if they need to know in real time if a conversation is about a compliance issue, a legal issue, an upsell opportunity. Essentially, we are giving them the opportunity to make the correction and coaching in the moment versus after the moment. And then, of course, there's a full agent performance application for the supervisor, where the supervisor can take down notes, do coaching sessions, all of that. Then there's an application for QA person where a QA can come in, review the calls much faster, analyze the right amount of calls, look at the targeted calls to review, like the sentiment is bad or there's a compliance issue somewhere, and then automate that part of the process, right? And then there's an application for operations to do full analytics on the contact center to find out what makes the contact center work. Why is my AST low? Why is my sales conversion high? All of that from that data. So that's sort of what Observe.AI does as a
Got it.
product.
So there was a lot there. Like, let me unpack that for a minute.
Yeah.
And sort of take it one level up. So, and you did a great job of starting from the business outcomes and moving it down into the tech. I'll start from the tech and move up to the business outcomes, and we'll sort of do it in reverse. So bottom line, you mentioned that big, gigantic floor, people physically walking, inefficient. When we went home, it got even more and less efficient, right?
Yeah.
The reality of it is we've got humans. Humans are on the phone. We need to make sure that we track them, monitor them, improve their outcomes for the customers. And what you're doing is a couple of things, right? One is all the post-call stuff, chats, emails, call recordings, which are being transcribed, are being wrapped up, analyzed, run through NLP, and you're getting back transcriptions and then using logic to say via sentiment, this was bad, this was good. You were on script here, you were off script there. Just taking this voluminous amount of information and making it something that you can look at every call and see trending on to make agent management easier. Fair on that portion?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And then on the, just bear with me, on the real time part, right? And this is, I'm going to hit you with some questions around real time for a minute. While all that's happening, the reality of it is you're then also able to kind of get that heads up display on the activity that's going on now, right? Based on your language modeling, what are the words we're trying to avoid? What are the words we want to ensure that they use? We want to make sure calls are getting wrapped up effectively, et cetera. And you're providing really real-time intelligence to supervisors. Hey, might be where you want to jump in. Right. This might be where you might want to pull the agent off the phone because they're distracted. Here's an area here that you should, that's acute. I think the one that I get, how'd I do? Okay. Describing?
You did pretty well. You did actually pretty well. We're looking for a new leader, so maybe we should talk one-on-one.
I love that. But let me ask a question because, look, I've got a legacy. We, at Bridgepoint, we have a whole CX team. We're doing this all day. In my history, I was at Evolve IP. We had a contact center platform that was in the Magic Quadrant. I was involved in working with those teams. We were always challenged with the gap between, what real time actually means. Let's be clear, right? Because the reality of the timing of how the NLP engines works is, you need a little bit of language to get enough context to be able to make sure that the correct. So when you say real time, I just want to make sure you and I are on the same page. How real time is real time? How far behind are you kind of in terms of that heads up display as interactions are happening?
It's actually, you would be surprised. It's actually very real time.
Okay.
It's so I would say from a time lag perspective, right? Let's say I say something, right? You're looking at maybe 1 second before you get the response back on your screen, right? And the reason for that is, right, the data transfer is not happening from your machine itself. It's a cloud to cloud transfer. So the way our real time works, right? So if let's say you're using, a good CCaaS provider like a Five9 or a Genesys or a Talkdesk, any of these guys, right?
Yep.
The way we get the audio stream, let's say you're an agent, I'm a customer, right? The way this audio stream is being transferred is not through your system or my system, but it's being transferred through Five9's cloud, which is in US, in a certain region in America, on AWS. We are in a certain region in AWS, and AWS to AWS, these are extremely fast tunnels to get this data, right? So it's really fast, and I think if you have not seen the demo, I would love to show you the demo and have you talk to some of our customers. You would see like it's actually really fast, right? Now that being said, so there is fast, but there's one part which is also interesting here: context. When you're doing real time, you only get the context until now. You actually don't know the context after, right?
Yeah.
So there are some applications, right? If you're doing post call, you have the entire context, right? You can do a better job when you're doing real time because I actually only have context until now, and you have to make decisions based on what I've heard until now, right? So it's limit certain applications that you can do. So the big one I always use is notes, right? When agents takes notes, right, and you're doing an after call work, Observe wants to do the after call work once the call is over because now I have the entire story. If I'm drafting the notes while the call is happening, it can go in multiple places, and the notes I might have taken might not even be relevant until now.
Yeah.
Right. So this is an example of an application where you got to wait till the call is over, and then in 1 second the summary pops up, right, and it's all real time and good before, and the agent can take that and put in the CRM and other places. But you can't do that as the call is happening because you don't have the context on the other side of the point.
Got it. Makes sense. So with the idea of context and sort of the timing on the, if you were to add context, the reality of it is the natural language engine would start giving you words. And then as it adds context, it would sort of improve the beginning of the sentence, right?
Exactly.
Kind of
Yeah.
as you go. Um, just thinking about that modeling, can you share with me can you situationalize real time for me? And what I mean by that is like in the supervisor heads up display, let's forget
Yeah.
about post call, during call. What are the kinds of things how do customers apply that? I mean, what are the kinds of things that they're looking for
Yeah.
that throw the red flag up? When does the flag get thrown on the field? Give of the listeners some examples.
Yeah, absolutely. So the two most common use cases we have seen, right? One is a sales opportunity use case, right? I have a
Okay.
team that is running sales, right? You could be doing an outbound sales, it could be an inbound order taking sales, right? And every sales matter, every call matters, right? So now your team is,
Sure.
on these calls, running the sales process, running the sales script. You have your supervisors who have set up the right alerts on when a sale might not happen, right? So now I'm
Okay.
sitting here as a supervisor, right? I have this dashboard. I'm seeing like my 20 agents are doing these 20 calls, right? And on 19 of them, I'm getting this green indicator that the sale is going to happen, and they're following the sales process and it's good. On one, I see red, right? And I'm like, oh, seems like the sale is not going to happen. And then I have to act now if I have to convert the sale. If I
Yeah.
act tomorrow, the sale is over. So now is the opportunity for me to make this additional buck, right? So I go in there, I click, and Observe will precisely tell you that why are we saying it's red, and in this case, why we think the sale is not happening. And that's the opportunity for you to either barge in, right, take over the call, or go ahead and talk to your agent and say, hey, propose this offer, or make this discount and get the sale done, right? So a very strong revenue use case, right? You don't want
Got
to
it.
lose your sales.
And the things that it's hearing that make it red, give me those specifically. So it's
Yeah.
maybe there are words that are non-buying words. There are chains of text that we're expecting our people to say that on that side of the recording are not being said. Those are the kinds of things that make it turn red.
So let's use an example, right? So let's say I'm a telco company, right? This is a plan upgrade call, right? So all my agents, when you call in and say, I have a plan, I want to change my plan. So they route you to a certain set of agents, right? In a telco, you would see agents ranging from service agents, retention agents, upsell agents, right? Your service agents are regular, like, hey, I have a problem with my bill, how do I pay? Then you have retention agents, which are like, yeah, I'm canceling, I want to move to a different provider. That's the retention agents, right? And then you have the upsell agents. So now you're talking to an upsell agent, right? The upsell agent's job is to, upgrade you to a higher plan, so get more money from you, and then
Yeah.
also maybe lock in a watch or an iPhone or something else along with that plan, like, hey, you're running this great discount, all of that, right? So each of us has a KPI, right? Each of us has like to sell 2 iPhones a day or like 3 watches a day. So I'm running this contact center now. I have these agents who are doing this now, and I have a sales process, right? As an agent, I've been given the sales process that, okay, this is my pitch, these are the available offers to you, these are the available discounts that you can offer, and this is the value pitch, and this is how to handle objections, because you're going to get a lot of objections in the call, right? So now, from using this and using the past interactions, Observe has designed what a great sales call looks like,
Yeah.
right? So now we say if the customer is showing you, intention to buy, they're talking about, contract, they're talking about, tell me more about the pricing, tell me more about when it can start, when it will be delivered. These are buying signs. But if you're hearing from the customer things like, yeah, let me talk to my wife or husband. Hey, let me call you 2 days later, right? Or let me think more about
Totally.
that, right? These are signs where they're not buying. So we use some of these signals and then alert the supervisor that, hey, this agent is not going to make this sale because they're not able to handle this objection, and they can see in the dashboard what is the objection, and they can either barge in, tell the agent how to best handle,
Got
or
it.
put in an offer right there, that agent make this offer to the agent, because the supervisor knows that this can convert the call.
Totally. So that's it. You brought up a really interesting point that I want to explore a little bit on, right? You've got Observe.AI. You've got AI in the name of the company,
Yeah.
right? So I'm going to broaden the topic a little bit because I honed in very specifically on practical in-world applications for a reason, right? I mean, there's a lot of madness going on right now, at
Uh,
least in the markets related to what's going on around artificial intelligence. In our world, you know, our customers generally have they think it's magic, right? And I'm
yep.
just being transparent. I'm going to reduce agents by enabling bots, and then, my very next question is, well, okay, that's great. What's going to inform the bots? Is your process written out? What do you mean? Right. And so the whole idea of like providing AI context is really what this boils down to. I mean, it's only smart insofar as you can tell it things that it can be smart about. So totally get that. So here we're in this, what I perceive to be semi-irrational, largely art imitate or life imitating art kind of thing around, oh my gosh, AI is going to change the world because we've got some now available modeling and chat GPT and things like that are going on. Obviously you work with AI technologies every day.
Yep.
What are your thoughts on where we are as an industry around, good guy, bad guy, government involvement or non-government involvement? Like, it's kind of getting the narrative is getting crazy.
Yep.
And as you're answering that, I'd be curious to know if those are some objections that you guys are hearing out there in the field. Where people are like, this sounds great, but I'm scared. It was a very broad question, but I think I'm just trying to ask you to open it up a little bit. Like, where are we in society around this AI topic right now? What's real? What's not?
No, absolutely. And I think this is the burning topic everywhere, right? I'm glad you brought this up. So I think according to, Observe and me and then my computer science background, I absolutely believe that we are turning a corner with AI right now. Right. In the last 6 months, we have made some of the biggest advancements in AI that we have made in a while, right? So in 2017, deep learning was the thing, right? That was the biggest thing that everyone spoke about, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in the last, I would say, since then, in 5 years or 6 years since then, what we are seeing right now with ChatGPT, GPT, generative AI are some of the biggest advancements, right? So from a purely from a technology advancements perspective, this is a big change, right? Now in terms of how scary it's gonna take over the world, all of that, I think there is some value in that conversation, right? Because with every technology, right, you got to use it responsibly, right? So there is value in like where you could take AI and really use it to harm the society. I'll give you some examples, right? So we are talking about generative AI, right? Generative AI can generate content for in a way it looks very very human, right? So today, for example, I can take your picture, Scott. I can take my picture, and I can actually generate a podcast. Or actually, I don't need picture because it's a podcast. I'll take your voice and I'll take my voice, and I can generate a podcast, and I can make it about anything I want, and I put it out there,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it will feel 100% like you and I are speaking. Now that's not the right use of technology here, right? And technology has reached a point where you actually cannot differentiate, right? So I think there is the part of AI where we all have to be really responsible about it, right? Where we all have to be really careful about how we use it to to the advancements of human society and not to pull us back, right?
Yeah.
Especially divide the class into there's people who understand these technologies and know how to use this technology to sort of dominate the people who do not understand these technologies and don't know what's happening in the world, right? So it's I think it's on us to make sure we don't let that happen and we use AI in the right form. Now talking about sort of like in contact center, right? You spoke about I'm going to automate my agents and do bots. I think doing bots and chatbots and conversational AI is not new. It started about 5 years ago or even
100%.
seven. We've been talking about chatbots, voice bot agents going away for a very long time, right? We have made progress on that front. I feel like we obviously see a lot of chatbots, voice bots, but I actually believe generative AI and large language models and what's happening with chat GPTs is actually going to advance that journey for sure, right? But it's going to do 100%? Absolutely not, right? but it will definitely take you one step higher. So if maybe you were able to automate 20, 30%, now you can automate 50%, 60%, right? It's never going to be 100%. There's always going to be an element of human emotions, human empathy that will play a big role in customer experience, right? It's not about getting a right answer, but it's also about bringing empathy into the mix, which technology is not going to do. So all in all, I actually think this is a big moment for AI. And then talking about customers and objections, I see that when we talk to our customers about the latest and the greatest of technology. So, for example, 2 days ago, we hosted a GPT Innovation Day where we invited 12 of our largest customers in the Bay Area, spoke about AI, spoke about GPT. And yes, I could see that people are worried to an extent, which like what
Uh huh.
happens to my data? Is ChatGPT going to leak my data? Is my data going to be misused, right? So we as a company have to make sure we protect our customers' data, their privacy, their security, right? So all in all, to summarize, yes, I think this is a big moment in AI, right? I encourage enterprises and CIOs and head of IT to actually look into some of these technologies to advance their contact center. It's a natural evolution; it's going to happen,
Hmm.
but do in the right way, right? Think about security, think about privacy, think about ethics, all of that into account as you bring some of these technologies into your contact center, into your enterprise.
This is a hard one. And maybe it's just a yes or no answer, but I mean, as an industry, have we earned the right to self police? Or is, this, or, are the government overreach? Okay, where my opinion is just by me saying that. Is the
Yeah.
government involvement conversation warranted?
I think I'm kind of split on that, right? The software engineer in me, the builder in me is like, no, let me build all the cool stuff in the world, right? Let
Yeah,
me do amazing things with technology, right? But at the same time, I feel like there are some things that I could do which are not good for the society, right? There are use cases that I can solve which are not the best outcomes, right? So I think either as a government or us as the builders, right? We put our guardrails and we put our protocols, right? But there is some value in having some guardrails around this that will help us advance this for the right cause versus the wrong causes, be
yeah,
it government, right? Or maybe the government is not the right solution because they might not understand the technology. Maybe it's us, right? It's the builders, right? You and me, right? We define the guardrails and we say, guys, these are the biggest problems we should solve, and we should advance AI to do this, right? Versus going into use cases which are not right, right? So I think of it that way. I think of less as like government and not government, but I think of more of like, hey, there is we can put our right structures around this as builders to solve for the right use
interesting.
cases.
So we'll be following that closely. Let me add one more question on it. I mean, I think the hysteria falls into two categories, right? The first one is the very clear and appropriate one you just mentioned, right? The ability to create content that is fake, the ability to deep fake images, the ability to, ask a generative model to write you malware, but also to ask it to solve that malware. Like, yes, 100%. The other area of concern is the very kind of sci-fi, approach to the end of humanity, right?
Yeah.
Thank you to the Matrix and iRobot, and going all the way back to Isaac Asimov, right? I mean, we've been talking about this, and that part of the argument to me does feel very, life imitating art. But it is amazing how that self-fulfilling prophecy does potentially, come to bear. So I'm just going to ask it. I mean, we don't have to dwell too long here, but I mean, if somebody looks you in the eye and says, "Yeah, all of this is going on, so the singularity is near," what is your answer to that? Like, how do you think about that?
I would say it's nearer than it was 2 years ago, right? I don't think it's near. We are not there yet, but we have made a giant progress.
Yeah, got it. And is that something to strive for, right? I mean, I think the hysteria is based around the singularity being accidental. You know what I mean? That
Yeah,
that
yeah, yeah.
that the computers wake up. You know what I mean? As opposed to that we inform them of the level of kind of consciousness that we're expecting them to have, or build towards that. I mean, are we actually? Is it our goal to get to singularity? I guess is the question.
I don't think so, and that's where I feel like we as technologists, we as builders, right, should put our systems in place on what do we want AI to be doing for us, right?
Yeah.
It should be like AI is there to help us, right? AI, we are the ones creating AI, to really help us do our jobs, much better, much faster, be more happy, have longer lives, right? It's for us to do, right? Versus, hey, we mistakenly created the system which is now not the right thing for us, right? So I think that's where I feel we as a society and we as the builders, not the government, should come in and put together some structures in place on how do we want to leverage AI going forward.
Yeah. What was it in iRobot? It was like the three laws, right? Like
Yeah,
we're going to have those at some point, which I totally
yeah,
get,
exactly.
which makes complete sense. Well, that went in a direction I wasn't entirely ready for it to go in, but I loved every second of it. And we could just keep going on this. We'll look for a time to have you on again to get a little bit deeper on this model as the industry continues to move.
Yep.
Um, Let me just end with a couple quick questions while I have you. And we may have already answered the first one, but I always love asking this, kind of give us a shameless prediction, 18 to 24 months. Doesn't necessarily need to be in tech, but I feel like given the conversation we've had so far that maybe that's where it's going to land. What do look in your crystal ball, 18 to 24 months?
I think there's gonna be extremely large companies that will be created based on generative AI, and there will be a lot of companies that will be under fear and threat using this technology, right? That's my big prediction. I think, and the biggest example that we are seeing in this direction is Google and ChatGPT, right?
Yeah.
No one could have ever imagined in their lifetime that anything can threaten Google's business, right? But it's a very common topic that we all talk about now, which is,
Yeah.
hey, right? So that's my biggest prediction, that we're going to see a completely new set of companies which are powered by these technologies have taken, are very large now, and then some of the largest companies out there are under threat, who have not advanced themselves to use these technologies.
That's amazing. Two more. And I agree, by the way. I think that's awesome. Um, let's just assume that eventual robot driven, extinction level event happens, right? And there's one app left on your phone. You have to have it. One app remaining functioning. What's it going to be?
I would. It's not even an app. It's just the basic use of phone. I would like an ability to talk to my family, right? My
Yeah,
wife, when I have kids, my parents, just give me
get it.
that, right? I think that is what we live for, right? At the end of the day, right, Scott, you and I, what do we live for? Our families, our kids, those moments, right? Our parents. So I think forget technology, forget business. I want access to that in the end.
Okay, got it. I love it. Is there something in we should be reading? That's the last one. What's on your end table right now? Is that you got some kind of recommended reading for the listeners?
I think one of the things that has been on my mind with so much advancements in technology is like just continue to build my thinking ability, right? Like how I think as a leader, how I think as a CEO, how I think as a founder. So I'm reading this book called Art of Thinking Clearly, right? So it's less about AI, it's less about software, it's less about business. It's more about like how do I continue to evolve my thinking muscle and process so I can process everything that's happening in the world. It could be business, it could be AI, it could be people, it could be anything, right? So just continue to evolve me as a human is what I'm focusing on right now.
That's a whole other podcast episode in and of itself. So while I'll wait for you to get through that book and we'll have another conversation. But words of wisdom, we'll maybe get a link to that in the show notes. I think lastly, if anybody wants to find out a little bit more about what you guys are up to, how best to do that.
Absolutely. No, thank you so much. So would love to chat if anyone wants to learn more about Observe and what we do, and in general want to talk about AI. You can reach out to me at Swapnil, that's my first name, SWAPNIL, at observe.AI, or just go to our website, www.observe.ai, and you can leave your phone number and name, and we'll reach out to you.
Yeah, fantastic. And of course, Observe.AI is a Bridgepoint Technologies partner. They work very closely with our CX team, so we build strategies around all of this in terms of implementing not just Observe.AI, but the CX platforms and the CCAS partners that you guys have in businesses. So we'd be happy to help in that process and move it along. This has been a great conversation, Swapnil. Thank you so much for your time today. And for our listeners, thank you for your time. Super excited to have spent this time together. And I hope you guys found that as insightful as I did.
we will catch you on an upcoming episode of The Bridge.
Thank you so much, Scott. It was great speaking with you. I'm glad we could cover a bunch of topics ranging from contact center to AI. And as you said, hopefully it was insightful for our listeners. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Listen, if you made it this far, there must have been some good content, or you're just a fan or a relative of mine. In either case, we appreciate you spending your most valuable asset with us, your time. We don't take that lightly. We'd also like to say one more time that we are appreciative of Bridgepoint Technologies and their belief and sponsorship of this show. We hope that if you or someone you know is thinking about your company's digital transformation or simply the next IT project that you may not have the resources, budget, or time to get to, I'm sure that Bridgepoint, one of the country's fastest growing technology advisory and procurement firms, can help. Check out Bridgepoint at bridgepointtechnologies.com. Don't forget the E on Bridgepoint. Or simply reach out to me at Skinka, SKINKA, at bpt3.net. Also, take a minute, please, if you would, to give us a 5-star review on your favorite platform. It helps give us the visibility to reach other people like you. Thanks for listening to this episode of The Bridge. I am Scott Kinka, and until next time, there's a lot of noise out there. In business and in life, do what you can to be the signal. Thanks.